I've been thinking a bit about mischief. When I was a kid, I got into my fair share of mischief. Prank phone calls, shaving cream shenanigans on Halloween night, that sort of thing. Most of it was harmless fun. There is one small bit of mischief I regret, though. It was 1984, and I was living in Australia in a small town in the outback because my dad was on a 6-month sabbatical. My brother and I had befriended a neighbor named Keith. Now, Keith was a friendly but soft-spoken boy who lived in a rough part of town with his mother and older brothers. He liked to come over to our house after school to watch TV and play handball and ask us questions about America. I doubt he'd ever left his hometown, let alone his country. One of his favorite things to do was look at our yearbook. He was particularly fond of a young woman in it. I don't remember her name, but for the sake of the story, let's call her Mary. Ah, Mary is the most beautiful girl I've ever seen, Keith would say. I wish I could go to America and meet her. Which gave me and my brother an idea. One morning, my brother called Keith up and said, "Guess what? Mary has flown to Australia, and she came to our house to visit us. She's here right now." "Really?" Keith said. "I'll be over as soon as I can." Now, I don't think we expected him to take the bait, but when he did, we decided to act on it. We borrowed a dress from my sister, and I dressed up as a girl. The plan was, when Keith knocked on the door, I would open it up and say, "Surprise!" What would happen after that, I don't think we thought about. We didn't plan that far ahead. Well, Keith did knock on the door, and I did open it up, standing there as a 7-year-old boy in drag. But I couldn't get the surprise out, because Keith was standing there with a handful of wildflowers, with his hair slicked back, wearing his finest shirt and his finest pair of pants, his face sunk. Now, my latest book is called The Riverman, and it's a story about, among other things, about betrayal and lies and miscommunications and kids showing up on doorsteps to surprises. There are lots of kids knocking on doors and finding out surprising things. Well, the story of Keith had a surprise, but it really wasn't the surprise of me standing there dressed as a girl. It was the surprise of what happened next. Because Keith's sunken face, after a few seconds, lifted up. He smiled as wide as I'd ever seen him smile. He stepped inside and patted me on the back and patted my brother on the back, and he said, "Oh, good on ya. That was the funniest trick anyone has ever played." That's the great thing about kids. They can be cruel, but they also have a huge capacity for forgiveness. And when I was writing The Riverman, I was thinking about that a lot. And I was thinking about what happened after that. Keith was still our friend. He was an even better friend. And that day we sat around and talked about America and watched TV. We went outside and we played handball. Me still dressed in a dress, and Keith with his hair slicked back, in his finest shirt, and his finest pants.